Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen. I'm Victoria Dangle, the Executive Director of the Society. This program is supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council, as well as the generous support of the Friends of the Artisan Lecture Series. We would also like to thank the Royal Oak Foundation for their promotional support for this event and welcome their members here this evening. For those of you not familiar with the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen, we were founded in 1785 by the skilled craftsmen of the city. They were artisans who represented 22 different trades, including carpenters, saddlers, tailors, and silversmiths, among others. Today, this 231-year-old organization continues to serve the people of the City of New York through its educational and cultural programs, including our Tuition-Free Mechanics Institute, the General Society Library, and our nearly 2-century-old lecture series, of which the Artisan series is a part. The space you are in tonight is the Library of the General Society. Founded in 1820, it is the second oldest library in New York City and one of the city's 3 remaining membership circulating libraries. And so tonight we gather once more to pay tribute to the art of craftsmanship. The Artisan Lecture Series has committed itself to giving voice to internationally known artisans who will talk about the intricacies of their specialized crafts. The mission of the Artisan Lecture Series is to promote the work and art of skilled craftsmen to assist in ensuring that their unique knowledge is understood and carried forth for future generations. And to introduce tonight's speaker, I am pleased to introduce you to Camille Weillard, the curator of the lecture series.
Thank you, Victoria. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for making it here tonight, especially because Alix Soubiran has come specifically from LA to New York to be with us. A couple words on our wonderful and knowledgeable speaker tonight. Alix Soubiran is the founder and creative director of Princess & Crow, specializing in custom murals, wallpaper, and decor. She will share with you her techniques and processes that she employs to create her exquisite wallpapers and decor. And there are actually some samples on the table in the near the RSVP and ticket section. So feel free to go after the lecture and look at the samples that she's brought specifically for tonight. A little bit about her background. After graduating from the Institute of Political Studies in Lyon in France, she studied art at the Met Institute of Penningham in Paris and mural techniques at the Pictorial Center of Decorative Arts as well in Boulogne, France. She then apprenticed with French mural master Jean-Claude Adorned and worked with UK-based designer David Carter before moving to the US in 2000. She opened Princess & Crow in 2008 in LA, where she currently lives and works. Thank you so much. Please welcome Alix.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks to the General Society for inviting me to speak tonight. And thanks to all of you for coming and attending. Since the days of early human existence, mankind has shared an inexplicable need to decorate their humble abodes. From archaic cave drawings to hieroglyphs, beautifying the wall has always been an important mission and interest of humans. It has become part of human nature, although the techniques and themes have varied to do this, and I see wallpaper as an extension of this desire. So before I start telling you about my techniques and process, I would like to give you a small overview of the history of wallpaper and its technological evolution. The aesthetic quality of many Paleolithic caves paintings is undeniable. In this first image, you see the Chauvet caves that were discovered in 1994 in France, in the Ardennes region. And they date from 30,000 to 34,000 years before Christ. We're not sure what they mean, but to me that is a very clear testament to early murals. Here is an image of a Pompeian fresco that was found in a house in Pompeii, dating 1st century after Christ, where you can see Dionysos dressed as in a grape costume and a snake, which is a sign of good luck. Here we come forward to the 13th century, which is the date approximately when a lot of European homeowners started decorating their walls with various textiles for warmth and decorative reasons. I mean, you can imagine, I'm sure, that how cold it must have been when your walls were made out of stone. And so the tapestries created an installation that was keeping the warmth of the fire in the room. And tapestries were also an inspiration for a lot of wallpapers that came to be afterwards, especially the wallpapers depicting landscapes. In the 16th century, as paper became less expensive, Europeans began to paste painted paper with images and decorative patterns on their walls. The ancestor of wallpaper is single sheets of decorated paper, referred to as domino. They were simply designed and printed with woodblock. Originally sold in stationery shops, domino papers had many uses. Lining for furniture, as you can see on this drawer, although it's on the outside, instrument cases, and when joined together, they were used as wall covering. Let me show you some examples of domino paper so you can see. The black outline is characteristic of the domino paper. Here is an example that's a little more sophisticated. They were colorful and inexpensive, and they were produced in France, in the Netherlands, in Italy, and in England. The simple domino-type papers remained popular through the 17th century. Here is a little diagram of domino paper being made. As you can see on the top, the artists are painting the papers and having them dry. I'm not sure what they're doing under. I think they are on the right. I think they're wrapping them, the little individual sheets, together in little packets. And then, as you can see in the bottom page, the installers are pasting the wall, probably with wood glue or with flour and water, to put the domino papers together. By the 18th century, wallpaper manufacturers had refined the block printing technique using one block to print each color. So in this image, you can see some wallpaper wooden blocks that are being hand-carved. They're usually made out of pear wood, which is a very hard wood. So it allows to use those repeatedly without having too much of the edge smoothing too much. So you can keep a design that is very, how do you say? Very clean, an edge that's very clean. Let me show you a couple examples of wallpaper printed with woodblock. See, you can see this drapé. I think it shows how the repeat and how you can see it's done with woodblock. I feel like I should tell you a little bit about the woodblock printing process, because I had the great honor of being invited at the Zuber manufacture in Rixheim in Alsace, where in 1797, Jean Zuber founded the manufacture. And they still have the same headquarters, and it's the last factory in Europe to print those woodblock printed wallpapers, and also furnishing fabrics. It was like traveling back in time, because first of all, I saw in the basements all their woodblocks, which were piled on top of each other. There's hundreds and hundreds of them. Apparently, they have more than 100,000 woodblocks. Mrs. Shalai, the owner, told me that some of the woodblocks, some of the panoramics they could never do again because the woodblocks had been used by German soldiers during the Second World War to make wood fire. So they will never be, those panoramics are lost. And on the top floor, I saw these wonderfully skilled artisans who were printing by hand these panoramics using those wood blocks. So basically, when printing with wood block, you ink the block with paint that is contained in a shallow box with some felt on it. And then you have cues on the blocks that tell you exactly where you should put it, because with very complex panoramics or designs as such, you have to be very precise in the way you apply the paints on the mural. So you have to be very, very precise to put each block successively in a complex panoramic. Towards the 18th century, the fashion for scenic wallpaper revived both in England and France, leading to some enormous panoramas. In 1804, the 20-strip wide panorama, which you can see a very small piece here, was created by Jean-Gabriel Charvet for the manufacture du Four, and it shows the voyage of Captain Cook. Here is quite another stunning example of how detailed and beautiful these wallpapers were. I mean, if you imagine each color that is on this panoramic is printed by a different block. So I don't know exactly how many colors were on this panoramic, but it is just so intricate and vibrant. It looks like a painting to me. And so I think we can say that in the late 18th century, 19th century, we see the golden age of scenic wallpaper. And since the travel industry was restricted to the upper class in the 18th century, in the 19th century, with the invention of steamboats and railroads, the desire to visit exotic places is more available, and the people who can't afford it have at least the opportunity to maybe see the world as interpreted by this beautiful decoration that turns the interior of the domestic interiors inside out with places with just murals like this. So I won't go into the details of the techniques of wallpaper printing because it's not exactly my subject, and I think some people are a lot more qualified than me to do this. But the reason I wanted to tell you a little bit about this history is because it is the encounter with this beautiful wallpaper, these grandiose panoramics, at an early age that made me want to dedicate my adult life into making or attempting to make really beautiful murals and wallpaper so that I could hopefully recreate it for other people, the emotion I felt when first seeing those, because I thought they was just the most exquisite and incredible form of art I had seen. So it is very humbling to introduce my work after showing you this, but I will do so nonetheless, and I will happily share with you how I created Princes and Crows, which is a small 21st century artisan company specialized in murals and wallpaper. So here's a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Paris. And when I was 5 or 6, my parents commissioned prominent French muralist Jacques Margerin to create a mural for their home in the 16th arrondissement. Here you see a mural by Jacques Margerin, which is in the Cercle de l'Union Interalliée, which is, a private club in Paris. So this is, I think, a good representation of his work, very clearly inspired by panoramic murals. So for my parents, he depicted, I have a little photo of the mural, a detail. He depicted this shore in the Caribbean in the 18th century. And Mr. Margerin was a very kind old man, and we would not really see him because when my sister and I went to school, it would be when he was painting, but when we came home, we would see progressively this mural coming to life and taking place with these people added and animals and houses and trees. And it was quite wonderful to see a mural in progress appearing magically. And he also painted my sister and I on the mural with little monkeys on our shoulders. So it was also quite incredible to be included in the mural, become part of it. At 5 or 6 years old, this was, at least. Another, I think, key moment for me in deciding what I was going to do with my life, my career, was, excuse the watermarks. I couldn't find any images of this beautiful mural without the watermarks, so obviously they're not in the mural, but another defining moment for me was coming across this mural by Zuber, which is called Views of the Brazil. My grandfather, André Soubiran, was a noted French author. He was the recipient of the Théophraste Renaudot Prize, the literary prize, and he was also an eccentric man who lived in his robe and in a house that was just completely filled with books, but not books like beautifully arranged like you see, books that were basically floor to ceilings. And there were so many books that it would create an architecture of its own because there were books everywhere. And so he had this Zuber wallpaper, and it was mostly hidden by books. You could hardly see it. But between books, sometimes you could see a little peek of the wallpaper, and you could see a little native or a little leopard, which I found a leopard. So here it is. And I just remember it was so magical to see the Brazilian jungle in my grandfather's living room, and just little pieces of it being revealed was just so mysterious. And when you're little, sometimes it's hard to see if it's, I couldn't really identify if it was painted. I could feel like it was real, but it wasn't. And this was just so incredibly well done that it puzzled me a lot as how it was really made. I'm fasting forward now. After, getting my degree in political science, like Camille said, and study graphic arts, I then studied at I studied murals at the pictorial decorative center of pictorial arts in Boulogne, France. And when I first saw this school, I fell in love because you enter the building and there was this courtyard with lots of trees, lots of flowers. And I remember seeing these women who were sitting outside, smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, and had these white blouses. And they were in the sun, and there was also this atelier with a not as beautiful, but a similar, much smaller glass roof. And when I came into that atelier, which was the school, there was the smell of linseed oil. There were like paintbrushes, canvases everywhere. And it was just so incredible. And then I thought that's really the school for me. I was mesmerized by it. And I started studying there. And this is the kind of things we learned there. This is a malachite, painted malachite that I did. It's painted on gold leaf, so you have the, how do you say, the luminosity of the malachite. This was actually made mostly using a metro ticket, so they really show you how to use tricks, and often with like the most simple tools. Here is a little piece of faux marble. Although the atmosphere was very relaxed, it was a lot of hard work, a lot of hundreds of time of painting the same kind of marble over and over. Same thing with wood, like we learned how to paint 10 to 12 different kind of wood. And it was very rewarding, but also extremely a lot of work. Here's like a faux marble column. Here is also a grotesque. So that's the kind of thing that we would learn there. And our teachers taught us the Van der Kellen technique, which is based on the teachings of this great Belgium decorative technique painter. And what I really liked also about this is that we were learning the art of fooling the eye. Trompe-l'œil means fooling the eye, and just mimicking those beautiful woods and the fact that maybe you wanted to, you could paint a marble, a kind of marble that doesn't exist anymore because it's been used so much that it's no longer there. So through your technique, although it's not real marble, you're able to somehow make it come to life again. And I thought there was also an element of decorative forgery that I felt was a little dangerous and fun, which I felt was attractive. I was lucky enough to learn some other techniques through artist master Jean-Claude Adnin, who's extremely talented and fast mural artist. He's also ambidextrous, which allows him to paint with both hands at the same time. So he painted, I saw him paint it. He painted it with both hands at the same time. So his head was where the vase is at the center, and then he did at the same time the symmetrical elements on each side. But I think they would need a whole conference to talk about him because he's really incredible. Then after I completed my education in decorative arts, I started working in the beautiful Queen Anne style house of interior designer David Carter, very interesting and talented interior designer. This is a photo of what I did in his house. The photo is nice, but you can't really quite see. But it's an empire in the entrance. I did this first empire-inspired decor. And he was very avid of a lot of classic Renaissance and early 18th century decorative designs. And since I love doing that, I was in heaven working with him. In 2000, I moved to the USA, and for the last 16 years, I must say, I have been blessed with working with truly incredible clients throughout Europe, mostly in the US. And sometimes they're challenging, sometimes they are complicated, but I feel like I've learned a lot working with people who didn't necessarily have the same vision as me. And yes, and I've been truly blessed to work in these really beautiful high-end residences and hotels, and I've worked with a lot of celebrities who value discretion and respect for their privacy, and when they open their house to you. So since I respected that completely, there's some beautiful installations that I can't show you because I was not allowed to take photos. But so that will remain the mystery. Here, let me show you a few photos. So this one was in Beverly Hills. This is a mural I painted for the MGM Mansions in Las Vegas. It's painted on canvas and then mounted directly on the wall. This is in the Pacific Palisades. This was decor that was inspired by Indian book, that illustration in a book that the client really loved. So here's I think you can see a little better. Here is a collective creations in Mulholland Drive. I don't know if you can, it's a little dark, but basically it's like this landscape that's painted on the walls. And here is a detail of it. It was almost finished, not quite, but close. Here is more historical. This is after Singerie by Christophe Huet. And again, I love to do historic pieces, so it was a lot of fun, especially painting little monkeys. Going back to wallpaper, I wanted to tell you a little bit how I got into wallpaper. I started making wallpaper in 2008 when I moved to Los Angeles. I had no idea how to make wallpaper, but I thought let's take some big pieces of arches paper, pin it on the wall, and paint what I would imagine would look really nice on a wall. So I did that in my studio. So I had these giant pieces of paper, and I would paint this design that I was inspired by, and see if they would work or not, let them sit. And I wasn't sure, but after a while it was clear whether it was a good design or not. The first design I did was called French Room. That's this one. I had it in my head for a long time, and with this one I was trying to imagine based on like, books of like Stendhal or Flaubert, or what this beautiful, charming bedroom under the roofs of Paris would look like. And I was trying, when I was, researching the color, that blue, I wanted it to be a little smoky, as if you had like hundreds of years of like candlelight infused in it. And it took me a while to get that blue right with the printer, but we eventually did it. And I think I realized after that I was probably trying to infuse a little bit of history around me when living in California, which was so new. Here's another one called Enchanted Gypsy, which was printed on this beautiful German textured paper. And so here's a photo of my first few wallpaper. People often ask me why I called my company Princes and Crows. And I called it Princes and Crows because it was the name of an art show I did back in 2007 in Greenpoint, where I had painted portraits of princely young people, and I had done an installation around it in the window with stuffed crows. And so the name stayed with me, and I thought, well, if I'm going to have a legitimate wallpaper company, it has to sound like a wallpaper company. And so I thought of Cole and Son, and Osborne and Little, and Farrow and Ball, and I thought, well, there we are. It's going to be Princes and Crows. So that's how I called it. And here I have a couple little videos in this presentation to show you my process a little bit, how I work. So let me show you. So I have I don't want to call it unconventional, but I guess different approach to wallpaper, because I start each design with a hand-painted design. Then my designs are translated into a digital file and transformed into a seamless, repeated pattern. My inspiration comes from different sources. I would say mostly nature. I love nature. This one, Sea Ballet, I don't know if you can see, I guess you can see a little bit the details, was inspired by creatures who lived in the bottom of the ocean. This was for a kid's room, and I didn't want to put dolphins and clownfish and these fish that you're used to seeing in kids' room. I wanted to have anglerfish and shrimp and also jellyfish. And in the pattern, I tried to also do something that I think is key to wallpaper, which is to create a flow. You see in the way it waves, it has a wave, and also to create a story where some of the fish are looking at each other, some are looking away, and there's this little encounter and like meeting, going away. So I always try to do, when I make a wallpaper with figurative elements, I always try to make it a little bit narrative and make sure that there's a flow. Here is another one called Holiday in Waikiki. This is also inspired by, I guess, sea creatures and rabbits and dogs. Here's an image of it when it's installed. Another one that was inspired also by the sea. And here is another one called Tree Party. I like to put a lot of details especially when I work on kids' wallpaper, because I feel like when you're a kid, you want to make stories. And when you're about to take a nap or fall asleep and you look at what surrounds you, I imagine your wallpaper. I think it's kind of nice to see again like familiar friends and create different stories about what they're doing and that. So I always think about that when I do a wallpaper. This one is called Rolling Stone, and this was inspired by some stones I found when going in the desert in Joshua Tree in California. When I work with geometric, this wallpaper is called Vizir. Same things, obviously there's no narrative there, but I try to, I will like hand paint the same design several times, so that when you look at the wallpaper, I didn't just create this pattern and then, you know, cut and paste. I do it again and again and again and again. So you keep the human hand. It's not just the repeat of exactly the same design. This one is called Bermuda Triangle, and for this one I was just experimenting and trying to do something a little kaleidoscope. And I put a texture that you can't really see it on this photo. For each color, like goes a different direction. So it's not just, again, just doing like different colors. This one is called Carnaval in Trinidad. And it's an homage to Zuber, which I admire so much. It was my little Zuber tribute. Here it is installed in an apartment in Paris. I thought another way I could show you how I work is by explaining to you how I created this particular wallpaper called Feathery. So I started by having fun painting a little watercolor of a feather. I don't remember what the name of the bird that has this beautiful feather is. But so I was working with an interior designer, and she asked me to come up with an idea for cabinets for one of her clients. And so this was my idea. This is the cabinet when it's made. So I toyed with these like feathers, and I loved it so much that I thought, I think I could do a really nice wallpaper with this. So here's a little film. So basically here I am, as you can see, like painting it by hand. And after it's painted by hand, I scan the design with a very high resolution scan. And then it's being cleaned on the computer. So we work with a lot of things really, because you have to think about the distance between each element, the balance, the scale, the flow, the tone, the texture, the intensity of the colors. And it's a little tricky. And here is like a sample. I think it was probably like the 10th sample, because sometimes it takes a long time before you get it right. Here is the same wallpaper in a gray colorway. I only create wallpaper on colors that I think work, but if clients want to have it made in a different color, it's totally fine, it's totally possible. But sometimes I just find 3-4 colors that work, and that's it, sometimes 2, so I only create the wallpaper in these colors. So this is in the, not too far, this is in Long Island, in a bathroom in Long Island. And then it was in blue in a magazine. Now to talk a little bit about murals. Basically, it's a similar process to wallpaper, except you don't have the computer aspect and all that. But basically, when I work on a project, I will start with a rendering to scale of the room, because basically with rendering, then you can agree with the client as to what they want. I feel like if you start working on something with somebody but there's not a visual agreement, then the door is open for disaster. So here is a project I'm currently working on for a house in Pacific Palisades. And the client wants this 18th century mural in their room. So the designer gave me his color palette. And so I'm trying different things and see what would work best for this particular space. This, again, is a rendering that I did for a client in Washington, D.C. She wanted some Walt Disney elements in the mural, and I was not really too crazy about it. But I still wanted to please her, so I came up with making it like a kind of a grisaille, you know, this monochromatic color, like ochre. And also just telling her that kids have so much of a mess in their room that if the walls are already very colorful, it just becomes a little too much sometimes. So this is a piece of the mural. And I painted it all in my studio in Los Angeles, and then I came to Washington, D.C. for the installation with the installer who pasted the walls to apply it. So here is the rooms. Other times, I feel like a good mural is or decorative painting is very much defined by architecture. I feel that if you're lucky enough to work in a space that has a specific architecture, using the architecture as the base of your theme is a very efficient way of having a nice work. So in a way, if I work in a house that has a beautiful architecture, it makes it so much easier. And I know it's going to look so much more beautiful. For this one, so it was like this tent, hand-painted tent. It took a long time to do, more than it should have, because since I wanted it to feel a little bit like fabric and have a softness and a flow, I didn't use any tape, so I did it all by hand. And I achieved like the effect I wanted, but it did take a lot more time than I thought. As you can see, I'm still very inspired by Zuber here. This was commissioned for a client in Antigua, in the West Indies. Let me show you a photo. So it was painted on canvas with oil paint. And here you see it being installed. And this mural actually became a painting because I worked so much on it and put so many details that it was not really a mural anymore. It really was a painting. So it's interesting how things become decors become their own thing as you do them. And it's always surprising to me because even if I have a very clear vision of what it's going to look like, it always takes me somewhere else as I do it. And I make very detailed renderings, but I always end up adding a lot of things because I want my clients to have something that I'm proud of because my name is on it, and also that they will cherish, not be bored with, be excited about, rediscover. So I think I put the I put the bar high in a way. Concluding a little bit on what I told you, I think I'm focusing a little more on wallpaper because I think it's a little more like specific to this lecture. Here is a wallpaper I did for actress Mila Kunis, and I don't know if you can quite see the details. Let me use so she approached me and she said, "Can you make a toile that has subversive elements?" And I said, "Well, what kind of subversive elements would you like?" And she said, "Well, I would like an AK-47, I would like cell phones, boombox, a bong, In-N-Out burger. I don't know what else. Oh yeah, like the shoes there. Like she wanted something very LA, like AC/DC T-shirt and an Obey poster. So I was so excited. I did this with Joseph Mosseri, so that was a collaboration. But I enjoy like revisiting classic forms and styles of wallpaper and playing with like time. Another example of an experiment is this strap wallpaper. You only see just a little piece of it, but this elephant was actually an ink drawing by Tiepolo, the Renaissance Italian painter. And I thought it was so beautiful, and I liked the idea of an elephant in the room. And I thought wouldn't it be interesting to revive those artists and put them on walls, put them on everything, and reinterpret, but without compromising their true genius and the beauty of what they created, like hundreds of years ago. So that was another way for me to experiment with, and also with technology, because I really didn't know if I could do that. And eventually, after a lot of tries, I could. Here is another example of fun that you can have with wallpaper. This was for Flaunt magazine, and they had an issue in September last year, and it was based on, the whole issue was based on this imaginary town, which was a mix of Los Angeles and London. And so they said, what would the wallpaper about this city that is Los Angeles and London would look like? And so we had fun with that one too. So you can see the curry tacos. I don't know if there's a lot of, there's a lot in Los Angeles of taco trucks. So that's definitely a landmark. Here we have the Scientology sign around Big Ben. Here we have Charles Manson in a British telephone. Here I think we have Abbey Road. And then we had Her Majesty's Guard surfing and like a taxi cab with like surfboards going, I don't know, in the desert somewhere. And of course the British Bulldog and the Hollywood star. So again, this was it was a fun way of playing with times and spaces through wallpaper. Every year I hear that wallpaper is back, every 2 years maybe, and I don't think it ever went away. I think it feels like it's very relevant these days because despite the fact that people, I think, love wallpaper and beautiful patterns and novelty and colors and all of these things, I think it's coming more and more outside of the home, because I was thinking about all the street art and not necessarily graffiti, but those giant like murals that you see on the sides of buildings. And a lot are painted either directly on the wall or like on small pieces of paper that they paste next to each other, which I thought was strangely reminiscent of domino paper. It's basically the same kind of technique. And I think it's very much alive because it still shows our need to tell stories through art, through the walls. And I also think that technology is offering really endless possibilities and more possibilities that allow small artisan companies to compete with large multi-million-dollar companies that have big financial backups and so much distribution. So I think it's interesting that through that, virtually anyone can have their little wallpaper company, I think. And also it can be leading to exciting collaboration with those large companies or very historic companies. And a few years ago, so Zuber, which first inspired me to create wallpaper, offered me to print and carry a selection of my wallpapers in their showroom in Paris. And they had never done it for anyone. And I thought that it was just so incredible and magical that I would be inspired by them. And then in turn, they say, hey, do you want to be in our showroom? And it was such a great honor. And I guess that's a dream come true to me, to be represented by them and be invited tonight in New York City in this 200-year-old building after 200 years of extremely talented lecturers is another big honor. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Questions?
When you do murals, tend to always do them on canvas as opposed to the wall itself?
I like better to do them on canvas because I feel like it gives more of an art feel to them. Often the walls are not very nice to paint on, and you also don't know if they've been properly prepared for you to paint on. And two other wonderful things I see about painting on canvas is one, if you move, you can take your canvas and roll it and bring it in your new house. And I think that's very exciting. And also for me as the artist, and I can paint in my studio, listen to music, and there's not an electrician here and somebody doing plaster and wood and, chips of wood coming into my paint. And most importantly, usually clients don't really want to have you for like 2 or 3 weeks or a month in their home. So I think it makes everybody happier, I think.
And do you seal it afterwards, after you paint the mural?
Yes.
You seal it?
Yes, I seal it with like a flat latex varnish. And for projection, how do you call it? Hospitality projects, I use also like a flame retardant. I also use it for homes now, but it's a good thing to seal it with.
I was curious how you create your repeats in the wallpaper, and it seems like you make the design elements, and then you, like you said, you create a high resolution scan, and then you take it to someone like you showed in the picture.
No, this I work with. This was my assistant that you see, and so basically we use Photoshop and Illustrator.
Okay.
These are the two programs that allow you to do that, to create like patterns that you can print with digital printer. And if you work with Photoshop, there's actually a repeat button. So it's like, it just places itself. But it doesn't always work the way you want to, so you have to tweak it.
You have to tweak it. But wouldn't Illustrator be better because the images would be a little crisper?
Yes and no. I guess the advantage of using Illustrator is that if I want to blow it up, it would keep like its quality. But I feel more comfortable with Photoshop. But maybe Illustrator would be better. I don't know.
Well, I know I've worked in both of them, and I know Photoshop is more user friendly. So I can understand how you would, especially with the kind of images that you do.
Yeah, and Illustrator, sometimes it does strange things, and I don't know, and it freezes me, and I'm like, okay, I'm coming back to Photoshop.
Exactly, yeah.
Is there a showroom in the United States that carries your wallpaper?
Actually, I sell it on my website, and I have a rep in Los Angeles, but no, I don't have a showroom in the United States.
Not Zuber here either.
No, not here in Paris.
Thank you.
I went to the Cooper Hewitt a week ago, and there's a really fascinating room in there. I'm going to try to find out what the technology is. Have you been there to see this wallpaper room?
No.
Well,
Tell
they
me.
have 3 walls that are all interactive walls from floor to ceiling.
Yeah.
And then there's some sort of a dynamic table in the middle, and it's a screen, and you use different colored electronic pens, and you create your own wallpaper, and it replicates it for the entire 3 walls around you. And I was just thinking, how cool would that be for a kid to have that in their bedroom, and they could create a new wallpaper every day of the week.
That sounds wonderful. It sounds a little bit like I don't know, like a science fiction book I read when it was. This was happening a little bit, but I didn't know it existed, and I think that sounds really wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't know about it. Thank you. I think you should all go there because it sounds incredible. And
I'm sure it's very
No.
expensive to set up that
it
system,
sounds.
but I'd love to find out what the technology is.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I have trouble with Illustrator, so I don't know.
Have you helped with restorations such as at Versailles and places like that?
I would like to. I think that the companies that do, I think that the government or the whoever, like I don't know if it's the cultural affairs or whoever organizes those, always use the same companies, which are those very specific historical companies, which I would secretly love to be part of, but I don't know that I would have the knowledge, but I would love to do that kind of work.
Hi, does the mural in your parents' apartment still exist?
The mural in what? In my parents' house? Well, actually, yes, because so it was painted on paper, and they moved because that was a very long time ago, and now they have it in their bedroom in the south of France. So that's why I asked my dad if he could take a photo of it for the lecture tonight. So he did, and yes, it is.
An additional question: do you have any awards from the wallpaper that you have done?
You know, I tend to be most comfortable in my studio painting and then meeting with my clients. So beyond that, I don't really know what's happening in the world. So I don't really search or research. I feel like I should be a little bit more aware of all that. But no, I'm a little bit under the radar. So no, thank you.
Have you contacted the National Trust of Great Britain to see if you could do restoration work for them?
Oh, I know. I never thought about that, but I would love that.
Do it.
Yes. No. If you have the contact, or maybe I would love that.
I'm sure that I can help you.
Really?
Yeah, there's an office here. Well, the Royal Oak Foundation, which is which may have some members here tonight, is the U.S. branch of the National Trust of Great Britain.
Oh, okay.
And they have, hundreds of properties in
I would love that
England,
so much.
England, Wales, Northern Ireland. Yeah.
Wow.
So, I'm sure they would need your expertise.
Oh, well, I would be delighted. Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. Great.
So, Alex, it seems like you've already accomplished so much. But what are your future goals? Okay, we've just touched upon the possibility of doing more historic preservation work. But what else would you like to do?
The thing is that so many things I want to do that I don't think I have not only enough years, but enough lives. I think that one thing I would really love to do would be to create a panoramic wallpaper, like like those ones from the 18th, 19th century. And I would like to do it about this beautiful traditional, how do you call it? Procession that happens in Saint-Tropez called the Bravade, which is this beautiful procession where all the villagers from the city are dressed like they were in the 18th century, and they walk through the city with musicians and the beautiful red, white, and blue costumes, and it's very joyous. And there's the priest, sometimes there's animals, and they shoot gun, but not real ones, you know, just the ones that make the smoke. And it's such a beautiful, joyous, and it's so inspiring, and it sparks your imagination. And I think that would be a beautiful theme for a wallpaper. But that's one of my many ideas, but that's something I would love to do.
So, Alix, on behalf of us all, I would like to thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. So thank you very, very much. And I just want to say, I could see why someone asked if you were winning awards, because I think we probably all feel here this evening that your work is absolutely fabulous and deserves so much recognition. And I also feel that we are here at the start of your career, and we've been very fortunate to have you here this evening. So thank you so much. It's been truly a great honor to have you here this evening. So thank you, Alix. Thank you. Yeah. And so to make, at our lectures, we like to make a presentation to each lecturer, and to do this again, we have Victoria Dengel, our Executive Director.
But tonight we're calling this an award. Very good idea. Because we want to be the first. So, Alix, on behalf of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York, founded 1785, we express our gratitude to you, Alix Soubiran, founder and creative director of Princes and Crows, for her presentation, artisan designer of custom murals, crafted wall coverings, and decor, for your participation in the General Society Artisan Lecture Series. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I will give that to you. There you go.
Thank you. Can I show it to everyone?
Oh, of course.
This is my first award.
Not to be a stickler, but you'll have an acceptance speech.
Oh, I have to say something?
To seal this, an acceptance. Okay. It could be brief, but...
So I would like to thank the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen for giving me my first awards, which I'm very, very grateful for and honored to receive. And I would like to thank you so much for being here and attending this lecture and witnessing this great moment. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alix. And on behalf of the General Society, we'd also like to tell you that you're now a lifetime member of the General Society Library. Oh. And we know, I was speaking to Alix before before her lecture, and she was saying how she loved the building and all that, but I want you to know that when you come back from Los Angeles and travel here, that you come to the library, it's yours to think and to draw, and we hope you enjoy that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Meg Stanton.
A little memento of this evening.